So today we are, as I mentioned last week, I kept reiterating over and over again that we were going to be covering over this week and the week after Thanksgiving. We're going to be talking a lot more about preventative, rehabilitative, and restorative approaches to delinquency. We have talked about each of these approaches already. So now we're really going to start thinking about not just about the current state of juvenile justice, but also thinking to the future, right? Thinking about what happens next. You all are going to go out into the world, right? Eventually as workers, right? That's why you're in college, and your goal is probably to work in some, I don't know exactly what your goals are, but some of you are going to be going into a position where you may be working in the field of criminal justice, law enforcement, and juvenile justice. So it is worth thinking about what role you will play when you go out into that world. And for the rest of you who are not going into juvenile justice and criminal justice, this is still relevant to you, because as part of your whatever job or whatever path you take, these are topics and concepts that will be relevant in many aspects of your life. So I hope that we take the time to really reflect and start thinking about what kind of world we want to live in and what kind of world we want to work in. All right. For those of you who have not done your discussion reaction paper, you do still need to do your discussion reaction paper. So I am going to talk a little bit about what that assignment is. So recall at the beginning of the semester, we talked a little bit about this assignment, which involves you writing a literal reaction / response paper to the presentations that your peers gave. Your peers gave presentations on a variety of topics around juvenile justice, and your job is to write a response to those presentations. Now, I understand time has passed. You may not fully remember. I hope you at least took some notes. I do have a list of the topics that were covered each week. I can share those with you. And I also can ask for permission from you all if you're okay with me sharing the presentation slides you turned in. But otherwise, you are going to have to write your response paper based on the notes that you took. I did tell you all to be sure to take notes, because you would have to write this paper. That paper is going to be due December 10th. Your final reflection paper is a separate assignment where you reflect on what you learned this semester, what challenges you faced in learning the material this semester. You're going to answer these questions in the reflection, is have any of your assumptions about juvenile delinquency changed? Have they been affirmed? Have they been challenged? Sorry, it's really hot in here. And you will turn that reflection, this is a 3-page reflection assignment, that is due on December 10th as well. This is actually the first day of finals week, but I want you all to turn these in before finals. So you'll have until December 10th to get both of these assignments turned in. Each of them is worth 100 points. You definitely don't want to miss that assignment. All right, so let's get started by talking a little bit about prevention. So something that I hope that we have come to an understanding at this point in the class is that preventative measures and rehabilitative ones are all decided within a particular social context. And we understand that we live in a society that has structures that are racist, sexist, homophobic, ableist, and that because we have those structures in society, navigating preventative measures to delinquency and crime can be, what am I trying to say? They can be experience barriers. It can be much harder to actually implement these measures because of those structures. And so we have to recognize that punishments are not always based on prevention. Rather, in our society, right, we understand that most of the time Even though in theory we talk about treating juveniles from a rehabilitative and preventative approach, most of the time we actually are punishing young people. As we watched in the documentary last week, we as one of the most developed nations in the country or in the world, we punish more and incarcerate more young people than anyone else in the world. So, up to this point in the semester, we have considered many of the different social factors that can shape the lives of young people in the U.S., and now we will explore alternatives to detention and other forms of corrections. Identify and list the different ways that youth are criminalized in U.S. society. Be sure to also list at least one structural explanation, and then answer the following questions. How youth are criminalized, why they are criminalized, and what we in society can do to address criminalization. That's the first part of the assignment. The second part is you are going to pick one of the following roles. You're going to be either a parent, a teacher, a social worker, a counselor, a probation officer, and a police officer. And you are going to be at a town meeting with other people in your community talking about how do we address criminalization in our community. So a large number of youths have been encountering law enforcement and facing intense hypercriminalization. You all agree that arresting incarcerated youth has been ineffective at addressing the issue of crime in the city, town, or community. You determine that this does not actually address the issues that youth are facing. As a group, list some of the issues you imagine that the young people are facing, and using chapter 15, what we just went over, develop a plan for action to address young people in delinquency in your community. Last, imagine what your responsibility will be based on the role you chose from the list above. In other words, your plan for action should be based on the role that you chose from the list above. Now let me hand them out and go ahead and move to sit with your groups.